Tonight on EWTN Live, we'll meet a couple who uses science, medicine, and research to support their Catholic faith and morals and to bring healing, wholeness, and love to other couples around the world. So please stay with us. Thank you very much and welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa. Welcome to EWTN Live, where we bring guests to you from all over the world. Before we meet our guests, just want to mention that today is the feast of St. Joseph, the foster father of our Lord Jesus Christ, and someone that we very much need, where so many families are experiencing a lack of fathers in the house. We need to look up to St. Joseph, and all of us who are men need to realize it's time to step up and to act like men who care more about the people around them than they care about themselves, and to give of themselves and be generous. That'll be our task as fathers and sons and brothers and all sorts of folks in this world today. So let's ask his intercession. Now, tonight we have two guests. One guest was a Catholic medical school student during the height of the sexual revolution and free love movement of the 1960s, but also with the publishing of Pope Paul VI encyclical, Humanae Vitae, in July of 1968. He set out to examine how the science and knowledge of human fertility could light the path for a couple's openness toward the teachings of the Church. Together with his wife, Susan, they have spent the last 40 years studying human fertility and reproduction. They're the founders of the Pope Paul VI Institute for the Study of Human Reproduction in Omaha, Nebraska. So please welcome Susan and Dr. Thomas Hilgers. Welcome.
Great to be here.
Now, it's very much an honor to meet you and to have you on this program and get you to tell us a little bit about this story. So you are in medical school in the late 60s, and you were somewhere in grammar school or something, right? But
I've been accused of her being my daughter.
See, well, there you go. And you know, how, as a medical student, you know, this issue of Humanae Vitae comes out. A Catholic doctor, Dr. Rock, had developed the contraceptive pill. This was intended by the people financing it to be something to get Catholics to do more contraception. Certainly Sanger was part of that, Margaret Sanger and others. And as a medical student, how did you approach that?
Well, during the 1960s, the Papal Birth Control Commission was meeting. And there were a lot of sort of rumors coming out of the Papal Birth Control Commission. I was following that along. I'm a cradle Catholic. I had never any axe to grind, particularly against the Church. In fact, I've always been in love with the Church to a certain extent. And when Humanae Vitae came out, well, when the Papal Birth Control Commission decided they were going to want to change the teaching of the Church, everybody kind of went in that direction. That was 2 years before Humanae Vitae. And then when Humanae Vitae came out, I thought, you know, I ought to get a copy of that and maybe read it. Kind of a novel idea, really.
Yeah. And just so folks understand, about 1966, a commission of clergy, theologians,
medical doctors,
and lay folk, medical doctors, couples, all of them together, said, yeah, we should be open to this method of the pill.
Yeah, they actually voted 52-4 to change the church's position. Mm-hmm. They had met for about 4 years, and they were highly influenced by a group of married couples who had lots of trouble with, quote, rhythm.
Yes.
Well, there's a good reason.
Which is what? By rhythm?
Well,
you're not talking about a dance number here. What do you mean by this?
Well, rhythm is an old-style form of natural family planning that never did work very well for people. Right. And they had no professional direction, no good teaching, no anything for it. And so there were a lot of good reasons why this would not be very helpful to couples.
Right.
But in 1968, Pope Paul VI issued Humanae Vitae, and like I said, I wanted to get a copy of it and read it. When I went to the Newman Club chaplain at the University of Minnesota, I said, where do I get a copy of Humanae Vitae? He said to me, why do you want to read that kind of trash? That was my provocation. So I wanted to get to it even more.
As a matter of fact, one of the things that had happened was a pre-publication copy was leaked to one of the moral theologians, who then held a press conference standing against it.
It was an absolute setup.
Yep.
And there was one person, Cardinal James Stafford, who is now a cardinal, who was at that meeting. He was the only one who voted against, going against Humanae Vitae. Everybody in the room, there were 150, 180, something like that, voted to dissent. And they hadn't even read it.
Yep.
You know, it's only 30 minutes. It's a very small little document.
It is, very small.
And so when I finally did get I found a Suddenly Supplement advertisement for the Knights of Columbus and sent away for it and got it. Cost me 25 cents, I think. And I read it, and I was an instant convert to it. I mean,
What attracted you to it?
Well, a couple things. One is that the beginning discussion in Humanae Vitae has really to do with the principles of Christian marriage. And I never had any objection to the principles of Christian marriage.
And by principles of Christian marriage, what would be some of the key principles?
Well, fidelity is an example.
Of the couple to each other.
Married until death, fruitful. These are all principles of particularly Catholic view of Christianity. And so I thought to myself, before they even got to the issue of contraception, that there was really only one way Pope Paul VI could decide on this. And so by the time we got to that, I was already there. And then at the very end, there's a whole section called the pastoral principles or directives. And I actually have seen them over the years as the challenges of Humanae Vitae. And he isolated 7 different groups, everything from government to priests to bishops, Catholic lay people, and so forth. And there were 2 of them that I felt they were talking directly to me. One was men of science, and the other was physicians and healthcare professionals. And so in December 1968, I began my first research project as a senior medical student.
Okay. And, you know, it's good for folks to think back on those times. It was just in 1965 that no-fault divorce was opened up by law.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's a whole change of attitude toward marriage. Mm-hmm. And Pope Paul was warning about that. Was one of the things I remember reading, him saying that this is going to open up to all kinds of issues, so that abortion is going to be made legal. It's one of the predictions he made, and folks just poo-pooed it. Do you remember some of those things?
Well, indeed, he had a whole list of sort of projections into the future. One of which was that government leaders would mandate certain contraception, things of that nature. Well, it's happened in China, it's happening in the United States.
Right.
Or women who would be treated less lovingly, if you will, not the best wording, but less lovingly than with contraception. They'd be used more as a thing or a purpose or an end to a purpose, and so they were being used basically.
Right.
And these are things that have happened.
Exactly.
And the increase in sexually transmitted diseases, the increase in out of wedlock pregnancy as a result of that because of the promiscuity.
It went from 5% in 1960 to 43%
That's
in
correct.
the last census, in 2010 census.
We're as a culture, we have a kind of set of blinders on. We have not looked at seriously the incredible violence to the family that has occurred over the last, well, since 1960, years. Really. Yeah. And it's a disintegration of the family occurring right in front of us.
Yes.
And there was a study out of the University of Chicago many years ago that pointed its finger directly at the introduction of technological forms of contraception as the main reason for that. Not the only reason, but the main reason. And it's how people relate to each other when they don't love each other for all of who they are.
Right. And if you would have said that back in 1968, you would have been hooted out of the room. Absolutely absurd, but lots of evidence. Now, you were in high school when this is going on?
Yes, I remember actually the day that the Holy Father, that the encyclical was released. It was on the front page of my hometown newspaper, and it said, Pope opposes the birth control pill. And I remember reading that. I was in high school, and I'm like, oh, I think I should remember this. I had absolutely no idea that I would become so intimately, involved in this work. And actually, we met at the University of Minnesota. We both became involved in the pro-life movement, actually. We were very, very involved. You were a student there? Then at the University of Minnesota, and we were both involved. I met him. He was a resident at the Mayo Graduate School of Medicine in Rochester, Minnesota. And we started an organization actually together called the National Youth Pro-Life Coalition. But then at that time he was thinking about, once I finish my residency in obstetrics and gynecology, what am I going to recommend to my couples for family planning? That was a burning question for him. And he said to me, Sue, we got married a few years later, but he said, I know I will not be prescribing the birth control pill. I certainly will not be referring for abortion. And I will definitely be pro-life, but what will I give my couples that will be an effective form of natural fertility regulation? And we knew, of course, rhythm wasn't going to cut it. No. And so that's when he said, I really want to see what's out there. What's cutting edge? What can we really look at that has some scientific basis for it that would really move us in a direction where we could really come up with something or give something to couples which would allow them to use a system both to achieve and to avoid a pregnancy, and to do so with great confidence, but at the same time not have it contradict their Catholic faith. Sure. So, and then it all started then with the Billings ovulation method. We met the Billings that came to Minnesota.
They were a couple from Australia.
Melbourne, yes. Australia, yes. And do you want to comment on the method?
Well, we actually went to Melbourne and spent 3 or 4 days with them and tried to grab as much as we could information-wise, brought it back. I was on the faculty at St. Louis University School of Medicine at the time, and I started a research center there. We were originally funded from the National Institutes of Health, but of course we haven't been for a long time, but at least it was a good start. And we got a lot done, and then a lot of the support that I had as a faculty member kind of dissipated, and I ended up at Creighton University in Omaha. And on August the 6th, 1978, when Pope Paul VI died, we literally turned to each other and said, we need to build this institute.
So you didn't, did you start right away with Pope Paul VI?
The commitment was made on that day,
okay. And
then it did take us a while. 1985 is when the institute actually opened. We're 29 years old this year.
Okay.
And it has, it's an institute that has developed so much that even it blows my mind as to what we've been able to accomplish. Not only a natural method of family planning, the Creighton Model Fertility Care System, but also this new women's health science called NAPRO technology, Natural Procreative Technology, which is the first women's health science for women of reproductive age, which is completely consistent with Catholic teaching. And it's, in many ways, it's so much better than what they're currently getting. With birth control pills being used for almost everything, in vitro fertilization being used to treat infertility, et cetera, et cetera. So, and of course abortion, and I mean, it's, we live, I mean, this, I'm right in the middle of the culture of death with this work, and, and you know, you have a few scars from that, but anyway, it's, It's been an incredible experience, a privilege and an honor that goes way beyond anything I can imagine.
Now, do you find, first of all, other doctors, other medical practitioners looking to you and saying, there's something here that's better than this mechanized, chemicalized version? Are they responding to you, or are they still saying, nah, this is useless?
Well, we've actually had a pretty strong response, relatively speaking. Now, in terms of the overall profession, it's still small, but we've trained 500 physicians throughout the United States and in several foreign countries. We have an advanced fellowship program for obstetrician gynecologists where they can learn all the surgical aspects and other more detailed aspects of this work. And you might want to comment on some of the things that have happened in their own lives, in their own married lives, because of this work.
Well, yes. I mean, the doctors that have been involved with prescribing the birth control pill, and I'm speaking now about Catholic doctors, the majority of them in the United States, obstetrician gynecologists, even family practitioners, do prescribe the birth control pill, or they may sterilize, and many of them refer for IVF. Refer their patients to IVF, in vitro fertilization. Okay. To assist these women, these couples who are having difficulty with becoming pregnant. I'm saying this is the only way you're going to become pregnant. So it's very difficult for these doctors to convert away from that. Those doctors that have, if you will, somewhat sold their soul to the mainstream medicine approach, which truly is in opposition to their Catholic faith. And I think every Catholic knows, whether they're a doctor or otherwise, the Church's teachings on the birth control pill, abortion, and sterilization. So immediately, if you are involved in promoting that, there's going to be a wedge between you and your faith. So, so with these doctors, once they see, it almost takes a spiritual spark, Father, for them to realize, oh, you know, maybe I have to look at this differently. A spouse that's been praying for them, and often, Father, it is a priest like yourself with that collar who will approach the doctor and say, can you be a Catholic physician in our community? And that inevitably moves them to rethink what they're doing. And then when they hear about naprotechnology, it's just, okay, now I can do it. Now,
because they need not only the will
to say
but
no.
They also need the technology, the medical research.
Absolutely.
It's not technology, it's research.
Absolutely.
And medical practice and skills.
Absolutely. And so what's so remarkable, they can't believe it really, but when they stop prescribing and stop sterilizing and all of that, and they switch over to naprotechnology, the doors to their office just are flooded with women and couples. And it not only allows them to practice their faith in their doctor's office, in their office, or in the operating room, but also it impacts their marriage and their children. So it has this amazing conversion on their whole personal life as well. And we could sit here for 2 hours and share with you stories of these doctors that have converted. It's quite impressive. But if we have a moment, I just want to talk to you about the young generation, the JP2 generation, our beloved Holy Father who will be canonized soon. He was such a strong defender of Humanae Vitae. He was part of that Papal Birth Control Commission, and his pontificate, he took those basic teachings of Humanae Vitae and elaborated on them. And, you know, theology of the body, so many different teachings about married love, women, etc. And the young generation responded to John Paul II, as we know, and many of them, Father, this is what's so incredible. When he developed naprotechnology, he said, Sue, I think the doctors of my generation are going to embrace this and walk away from the birth control pill. No, it didn't happen, and we thought, where's this going to go? But the young generation, we now have young JP2 generation men and women who are going into medicine specifically to become obstetrician gynecologists and do naprotechnology. They totally get it. These doctors will never prescribe the birth control pill. They will never tie a tube. They will never refer for IVF. And it is really exciting. And many of them are out now practicing, doing exactly what he does in Omaha, Nebraska. And it's so exciting. The future is really wonderful in terms of these young doctors. They get it.
You know, this is very interesting. You know, one is just a comment. You know, we live in a world right now on two different networks today. I heard stories, it must be one of the news services, that there is a sudden increase in male sterilization procedures during March Madness so they can get out of work and watch basketball. But they're committing a serious sin, and they're committing an affront to their own self-gift to their wife. They say, no, I don't want to give you all my masculinity, honey. Yeah. I'm going to keep that back because I want to watch basketball. This is amazing to me.
Oh, and you know, the Holy Father, in that beautiful encyclical, Humanae Vitae, he spoke about the separation of love and life within marriage. And he said, you cannot separate them. And with contraception, Father, as we know, you are Xing out life, the life part. And he warned couples. He said that husbands who accept contraceptive practices will not respect their wives, you know, and allows them, it gives them the blessing, if you will, to consider infidelity.
Well,
so he could see that removing that was going to be a huge problem in terms of the husband continuing to respect the wife.
See, this is one of the two things. One question. I've heard that among people who use natural family planning and, you know, learn the whole technique, that their divorce rate is a bit lower than everybody else's. Is that true?
Well, there haven't actually been really good studies of that yet.
Okay.
But our impression is that it is true. It's not to say that divorces do not occur, but at the same time, what we do see a lot of is much better and improved communication between spouses. Somebody once told me, if you can talk about mucus, you can talk about anything, you know, one of the husbands. And I thought, well, that's right. And their communication about all things in the family is so much improved that it should lower the divorce rate. So there's a lot of need for more studies in that area.
Yes.
But that's a general sort of observation we've made.
But this is also, and that would be my second comment, in our society, I keep seeing reports of studies of 54 to 6% of spouses, male and female, are at some point unfaithful to their spouse.
Yeah.
That's extraordinarily high.
Well, the divorce rate's high. So
and the divorce rate is high. And there's a link between those two.
Absolutely.
Infidelity is really rampant. Sexually transmitted diseases, as we mentioned, all of them are rampant. We're in the midst of an epidemic of sexually transmitted diseases in this country.
What CDC, the Center for Disease Control, says 20% of adults are affected.
Well, it would be at least that. And what's really impressive is when the birth control pill came out here, the curve went up like that exponentially.
For the increase of diseases.
For the increase in many of these diseases.
Right.
Chlamydia, herpes, human papillomavirus, all of these conditions that are really devastating.
Hepatitis.
Yeah, and are really devastating to health. The medical and sociological impact of this in our culture has been devastating. And yet we still continue to have these blinders on where we don't look at these things seriously and try to look for real solutions.
Yeah, I keep seeing these kinds of studies in a variety of areas over the past couple of years, that the increased use of contraceptive devices of different kinds, the ones that they promote as safe sex, even to grammar school children, is the use of it is increasing, is indicative of the increase of disease because people take more risky behavior. And that's why teenagers, I think, are 25% infected right now. So the general infection rate is going to climb. If 25% had the flu, they'd be all over the news.
That's right.
And this is hidden.
This is hidden, and they don't want to talk about it for reasons that I frankly don't totally understand, except the various pressures that exist in the culture. But I mean, it is devastating, and this actually impacts real people, and the light doesn't go on for even some of them.
Right.
Certainly not for the doctors. I mean, they're just prescribing this stuff right, left, and center,
right.
and people are having these problems, and they just keep prescribing them. It doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah, there's some, we talked before the show about Dr. Richard Wetzel. Yes. In his book, Sexual Wisdom, lays out the studies. It's just
That's right.
got the data, mostly from Center for Disease Control.
Well, the data is absolutely correct. The first chapter of this medical textbook deals with that type of data. It's very, very disturbing trends in the healthcare of women, children, and families. And all of this thing started in early 1960s. And that includes abortion, contraception, divorce, chlamydia, human papillomavirus, herpes, whatever it is. All of it started then. And
about 40-some diseases now, I'm told.
Yeah.
Now, and the other group too, one doctor thanked me for saying this because she wasn't allowed to. She would lose her license, she told me. But, you know, the elderly are one of the groups with the fastest growing rates of sexually transmitted diseases. You know, and again, it's just, you know, it's not about children. It's they're just not dealing with maturity.
Well, each of these events hurt people.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we live in an extraordinarily insensitive culture.
Yes.
We have no sensitivity to the harm that's occurring.
That's right.
And it's right from the top on down.
Yep.
And somewhere along the line, we have to shake the culture.
Right. Well, here we're in a situation where the Congress, well, actually, it's not even the Congress. It's, you know, the Health and Human Services impose on us a requirement to pay for mortally sinful behaviors like contraception, sterilization, and abortifations. They're trying to totally. They're trying to force us to commit
Pope Paul
sin.
VI predicted that.
Yep.
It's right in Humanae Vitae, and you know, you had to be blind if you didn't see these things coming, and you know, it's upon us now, and we have a big battle ahead of us.
Yep. Well, this is definitely going to be the case, and somehow, I don't. If I was on the other side, I wouldn't want to put up with you two. You know too much.
You know,
well, the solution to our problems actually is knowing even more. I mean, people need to be educated on this so that people can carry out this battle, because it's a war, and we have to take it seriously.
Well, part of our education process is going to be a documentary that airs later on tonight. It'll be on 10 p.m. Eastern time, and then adapt to your own time zone. It's going to be about the history of the Hilgers' work at the Pope Paul VI Institute. The documentary is called Voices in the Desert, and you will be able to get a copy of the documentary for your own use at your parish, homes, and schools simply by going to EWTN's religious catalog, and that is EWTNreligiouscatalog.com. Or you can call 1-800-854-6316 and get a copy of that, and try to watch it tonight if you can.
Great.
We're going to take a little break now. We want to come back and get your questions and your comments, as well as those of our studio audience. So please stay with us. Thank you very much and welcome back. First of all, I want to invite you all to come here on pilgrimage. As the Hilgers who live up in Omaha pointed out, ooh, there's a lot of flowers around here. The red buds are in full bloom, and the trees are covered with white blossoms. The daffodils are out. The forsythia is out. Come on down and enjoy the first stage of spring in the United States, and then when you go back home, you get back to another stage of spring when you get there. So come and join us. If you can, call our pilgrimage department at 205-271-2966, or go to the website EWTN.com, where not only can you find our pilgrimage department, but if you want, you can find a copy in our documents library of Humanae Vitae and download it from our website into your computer for free. All right, you ready for some questions?
Good, you bet.
All right, let's start with the caller. Hello, Mary.
Bob.
Hi, where are you from?
How are you, Reverend Father?
Hi, where are you from?
I am from Connecticut.
Great.
And God bless you, Father Mitch. You're a great Jesuit.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you.
Well, I was taught by Jesuits in Fordham. Father, I'm going on 64 years married, and I have had 8 children, but 6 are living. Where did the so-called way they use the word rhythm method supposedly fail? It worked very well for me, Father.
Now, let me ask you this, Mary. Did you want to give back any of those kids?
No.
No, you like them all, don't you?
No, Jesus loved 2 of them, no more.
Yeah.
So that's all right, because I'll be joining them, no doubt.
God willing, God willing. But, you know, so why don't you respond to her on that?
Well, sometimes people think because it's a natural family planning system that it's only for avoiding pregnancy. And in fact, it isn't. It can be used to achieve as well as to avoid pregnancy, and it's in the hands of the couple to make those decisions.
Yeah.
The only commentary about the calendar rhythm method is that it had a much reduced, if you will, scientific foundation to what we have today, right. And it's just advanced. But we still have people who use the Creighton model system who have 8 children. Yeah. So it's not at all against the principles of what we're doing.
Right, right. That
we always talk about the achieving as well as avoiding pregnancy with it.
Right, and for some couples want to space them out, but they want children.
Yeah.
They
Yes,
just
absolutely.
want to plan so that they can deal with the variety of the issues that they might have financially, educationally, and so on.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
All right, we have a question from our studio audience. Father, where are you from?
Father Larry Neese from St. Michael's Parish in Woodstock, Georgia.
That's good. You've been here before. It's glad to have you back.
It's good to be here.
And what is your question?
After, I recall after Humanae Vitae came out, my mother was approached and someone from the parish said, "Aren't you disappointed in the Holy Father and his decision on Humanae Vitae?" Because we had a big family. And my mother said it couldn't have went any other way. Why is it that someone like her that didn't have the further education when there's theologians didn't understand that?
By the way, how many children in your family?
I'm one of 13.
One of 13. So,
That's pretty good.
So that's starting to work toward tribal size. See, this is one of the great things. We will outpopulate the atheists. But
there you go.
But what would you respond to that in terms of why the theologians thought this?
Well, I don't know the exact reason, because you'd think that they could think these things through just like anybody else could. But there was a wave. Once the birth control pill came out in 1960, and Humanae Vitae didn't come out till 1968, the whole cultural wave was towards contraception.
Right.
And other theologians in other denominations, different Protestant denominations, for example, had already gone to contraception. So I think some of it was that they thought they were part of the elite, they were part of the avant-garde, if you will, and they're going to lead the way, and they really dissented. What I'm impressed by is how unaccountable these people have been. If you go back to the people who dissented and all the bad things that have really happened, many of them, in fact, are pro-homosexuality and all these other things, and pro-abortion. They've gone that direction, and all of the things that we talked about earlier, nobody's holding them accountable. Yeah. And they're the last to hold themselves accountable. So I don't know what it is exactly, but it's a whole bunch of peer pressure, cultural changes, and so forth.
So you want to mention something?
You know what? We've been involved in this work now over 35 years. We've raised our family during this very, this cultural change, the sexual revolution, through all of this artificial reproductive technology, birth control pill, and abortion. And in our early days, we didn't really have a priest who supported us, what we were doing. We had no priests other than Pope Paul VI, who gave us an apostolic blessing once, who thought, hey, that's fantastic. But over all these years, what we have found is that people of faith, couples of faith, who have believed in the magisterium of the church and the teachings of the church, especially in the area of marriage, family, and sexuality, they see it through eyes of faith. They get it. And in spite of the lack of support from the pulpit, from their Catholic doctor, Father, it's so impressive how these people stay so faithful. So Tom and I can sit here tonight and say, support all of those people out there, including his mother. I'm not sure if she's still alive, but to say this, that the teachings of the church are true, and they are really based, yes, on truth, but also on a considerable amount of love. And I believe, like his mother, his father, and the couples that we have witnessed, they really understand the teachings of the church, and you have to see it through the eyes of faith. And I think we have to really uphold these people who got it in spite of the lack of support. And Father, there's been really a conspiracy of silence inside the church and outside the church in support of this important teaching of the church.
Actually, I would be just a little bit more negative than that.
Okay.
Because I've known plenty of clergy who say, look, it's up to your own conscience.
Yes, it's true.
And then I've known people to go to those same priests in confession and say, Father, I realize that, I've been contracepting. It's immoral, and, I want to confess it. They don't want to give absolution because, in fact, they were taught in seminary that it's not a sin. Don't confess this. But Father, in my conscience, it is a sin. But no, don't worry about it. They weren't following the principle of following your own conscience. They were actually against the teaching because of some of these professors and theologians who had themselves once been strong advocates of the church's teaching in their own classes, and in 66, 67 changed and became against it, and that became the acceptability in the seminary.
And we've heard that as well. But you know what we need today, and what we're seeing today, we're seeing a partnership with the professionals, the doctors and the priests who are supporting the couples, and that's the good news. And we can maybe talk about that later. That is, we see great hope for the future.
Very much so. I agree. We have Sandra. Hello, Sandra. Sandra, you there?
Yes. Hi, Father.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine. Where are you from?
From Pennsylvania.
Great. And your question?
Okay, yes, I wanted to thank you so much for taking my call, and I love your show. And before I start, I just want to say that at the age of 43, we had our third child by the grace of God, after learning the beautiful teaching about, life and what the church teaches. My question is, I'm a part of the pro-life group at our church. How, as a member of the pro-life group, can we get the message out? I do believe that the root of abortion is contraception. So how can we help change minds and, get our fellow Catholics to understand this teaching? Okay. Thank you.
I think actually one of the best ways to do that is to get a teacher in your parish who can teach couples in the parish how to do this. And I'm specifically referring now to the Creighton Model System. Set up a fertility care center in your parish and let that educational process spread throughout the parish, and you'll begin to see people taking a whole new look at this. The pro-life movement has actually been a little bit behind the 8 ball, if you will, on this whole thing for a long time. They were told not to talk about contraception, to talk only about abortion. But they've done this for so long now that this whole thing is coming out against them a little bit. And it's unfortunate, because I totally agree with her comment that contraception is the root of abortion.
And I hear that a number of evangelicals and other, Protestants who are in the pro-life movement, when they begin to see that, they see the connection.
They do, yes. And of course, we've had some people come out of the abortion industry now to show clearly that the connection is there and how they promote it.
And now with the IVF clinics, and there's so many...
and it's in vitro fertilization.
In vitro fertilization, right. And there's so many embryos that are destroyed or through fetal, reduction, that we're having a lot of abortions going on, in these in vitro clinics. So there's along with those abortions being done in the legal abortion clinics. So there's really a huge increase just overall in abortion, and it's all tied into this contraception mainstream medicine approach, to dealing with problems.
The number of children who have been aborted is now, close to 60 million?
It's in the 60 to 70 million if you take all the embryos lost from in vitro fertilization plus all the overt abortions. It's incredible. I mean, it's just the most incredible thing, most violent thing that you can possibly imagine. And we just look the other way.
Let's get another question from our studio audience. Ma'am, where are you from?
Woodstock, Georgia, St. Michael the Archangel.
Good to have you here. And what is your question?
The institute where you do your research, is that someplace that the general public can go to be part of the research, or how would they contact you? And
you can contact the institute by going to our website, popepaul6.com. It's a research, educational, and service institution. So yesterday, for example, I was 7 hours in surgery. And today I'm here, but I'm not sure I'm all here. But anyway, so we definitely, I'm in private practice, if you will. I'm in the operating room 4 days a week. I practice medicine 5 days a week, and I do my research on the weekends, basically. So, but we have a much larger staff now. We have people from all over the United States, and actually several foreign countries who come to the Pope Paul VI Institute for the care of their various types of problems. Infertility is one that's high on the list, but pelvic pain and hormonal issues are also there as well.
Okay. So again, it's the Pope Paul VI. So you just the word Pope Paul VI.com is the website.
That's correct.
And 402-390-6600 would be a place to call to find out more. And this lady's talking about participating perhaps, with various skills as a physician, biologist, and other professionals to help with the research and service.
Yes.
And of course, the learning. Marianne, are you on the phone?
Hi, Father Pacwa. How are you?
Fine, thanks. And where are you from, Marianne?
I'm calling from New York.
Okay.
I just have just two quick questions for your guests. I don't know much about the Creighton model, and I was just hoping that the doctor could elaborate a little bit what kind of procedures are involved, and also if the procedures are covered by insurance. And thank you so much, and God bless you for your good work.
Thank you.
Well, the Creighton model is a natural means of regulating fertility, and it is taught by couples going to an introductory presentation and then individual follow-ups with one of our trained teachers. Our teachers go through a 13-month allied health professional course, and they're certified through the American Academy of Fertility Care Professionals. It's an incredible sort of infrastructure that exists with this, along with the research. Naprotechnology is the part that's the medical side of it. And for the most part, those procedures are covered by insurance. There are some that will not be because they might deal with some aspect of fertility, and insurance companies have long been sort of opposed to funding things relative to fertility. But we deal with the diseases, the root causes of these problems, and so fertility as an issue doesn't always come up because we'll put down endometriosis, pelvic pain, severe menstrual cramps, whatever it might be, and it often gets reimbursed.
Now, would this also be something covered in the Affordable Health Care Act?
Well, we don't know. We don't know, to be honest with you. We do know this, that while the mandate exists for all the contraceptive methods, it does not it does not exist for any of the natural methods. And, you know, that's frankly unfair and biased and all of the other things that go along with it.
Perhaps it's just an oversight. Somebody in the administration, just, you know, the Health and Human Services just might not know enough about it yet.
That's probably right.
We have a question from our studio audience. Sir, where are you from?
New York City, originally.
Good to have you. And what's your question?
Question, both New York, a previous call, Marianne, and Paul, the sixth question, were both mine, the Creighton model also. So I'll just advance. The Creighton model, can it be taught in pregnancy crisis centers? Because here in Birmingham, we've had no abortions for 90 days. Thanks be to God. Yeah. Both Planned Parenthoods. But we're outside with 40 Days for Life. We see the employees coming in. Yeah. We send them down to Her Choice with their job resume. We'll get you something that won't be destructive. Yeah. So a lot of questions have come up on the natural family planning, and if a woman is sterilized, or is that the right proper, after an abortion? Yes. As the young lady asked, can the classes be, do you have to be OBGYN, or can you be a pregnancy counselor?
No. The teachers are the fertility care practitioners. And they go through a 13-month training program, not only through the Pope Paul VI Institute, but we have about 15 accredited programs all over the United States now. We have 275 centers. We actually need about 4,000 eventually, so we got a ways to go, but it's growing rather significantly. And if they want to find a teacher, they can go to fertilitycare.org, fertilitycare.org, and that gives a listing of all the teachers.
We have another phone call. We have Carl on the phone. Hello, Carl.
Hello, Father.
Hi, where are you from?
Minnesota.
Oh, great. That's your home state. Yeah. And what's your question?
My question is, I'm a paramedic, and pre-hospital, we've been seeing healthy young women having strokes and pulmonary embolisms. And I was just wondering if the doctor could elaborate on the effects of what the pill has on a woman's body.
Well, I think this is one of the great cover-ups, frankly, in medicine, that if you see a young woman age 25, 28, something in that range, who ends up dying of a pulmonary embolus or has a stroke of some sort, they're almost always, not always, but almost always on the birth control pill. The birth control pill carries with it an increased risk of those types of really catastrophic events. And
are there warnings about that on the packages that sell the pill and things?
Yeah, if you get the more detailed warning that the doctors get, it's pretty well outlined. In the everyday sort of product literature, they may mention it, but they kind of casually over it. And of course, you get it on the commercials that you see on television, you know, the commercial that talks about this, and then for the next 20 seconds, they go, you know, all the little stuff, which is all the serious stuff. So you get it, but again, the blinders are on. People are not connecting the dots with this, and we've been very, very insensitive to these types of things. There's a war on women, all right, in this country, but the war on women is being perpetrated by those people who are pushing contraception, sterilization, abortion, and in vitro fertilization.
Yeah, these are areas where a lot of women are being medically damaged, hurt in a variety of ways, and sometimes they're dying in some of these situations.
That's right. That's correct.
And what women are desperate for is knowledge about how their bodies work. And for centuries, there's been the mystery of the menstrual cycle, and women don't quite know how their menstrual and fertility cycles work. But through our standardized charting system, we've really answered all of those questions. And when women find out how their bodies work when they chart in a standardized way, it's like the blinders go off, the lights go on, and for the first time, Father, they understand how their bodies work. Are they working normally or not? And if not, then the chart will give indicators. And then they can be referred to a naprotechnology doctor to have those treated. Rather than being put on the birth control pill, these young teenage girls are being put on birth control pills for acne, for irregular cycles, the list goes on. And It's not solving anything. It's just masking the symptoms. But we need to teach single women about their fertility, married women about their fertility, and it's almost like when they understand how their bodies work, this inherent respect for themselves, it just, it's all of a sudden present, and these women are empowered, they have knowledge, and they now can make very objective decisions about, I don't want to go back and do artificial. That's not giving me the information I so desperately need. I'm doing this, and I am in control, and I'm getting my questions answered. It's a huge paradigm shift. It's a huge shift for women to know how their bodies work. It changes everything for them.
Well, you know, I remember some of the old rhetoric against Humanae Vitae, where people were just shouting it out and saying, I don't want the Pope in my bedroom.
That's right.
Remember that?
Oh,
to which I learned to respond, you flatter yourself.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be there either. But what he wants is God to be there.
That's
Good
right.
point.
That's the issue. Right. And by God's presence, not only your prayerfulness, but also that you use the system of the body God set there for you. Right. And it's not a tinker toy. Right. This is very complex, very rich, and you have to respect it.
Yeah, and how about the women who have cried out, I want to control my body. And yet most of these women don't even know how their body works. Right. There was a book written in the 1970s called The Curse, and it was all about the menstrual period. Right. But it was a horrible book because it didn't give anybody anything in addition. The most technologically advanced thing was something called menstrual extraction, which was an early abortion procedure.
Yeah. I have another question here from our studio audience. Ma'am, where are you from?
Birmingham, Alabama.
Good to have you here, and your question.
Okay. Dr. Hilgers, more and more teenage girls are experiencing ovarian cysts, and they're being put on the pill by their doctors. If these girls came to the Pope Paul VI Institute, how would you treat them?
Well, I'm going to combine two conditions, not because they have to be there at the same time, but ovarian cysts and severe menstrual cramps, because they're both treated with birth control pills by the doctors. With the menstrual cramp group, we have studied a large group, average age 17, and they all have endometriosis, which is a condition that causes this cramps. So if you get rid of the endometriosis, you can help that. With ovarian cysts, it's a hormonal issue. And so the treatment of that condition is with the hormone progesterone. And you can give it in a way which cooperates with the cycle, so it's not suppressing anything, it's actually helping heal it. Okay. So it's a really terrific treatment.
Okay, good. We have another caller. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Hi, and where are you from?
I'm from Texas.
Where are you from in Texas?
League City, down south of Houston.
Good to have you here, and what's your question?
Well, I didn't have a question, I had a comment. I wanted to thank you for having Dr. Hilgers and his wife on the show. I got to bring my children that he kept alive through pregnancy to the TV and say, there's the doctor who kept you alive. And so I just want to thank you for having him on, and thank you, Dr. Hilgers, for your work, because through the Creighton model, through neprotechnology and all of his research, we have 3 children running around and 1 on the way who are doing very well. So thank you so much.
So just so I understand, then you're saying that this is a success?
Very successful.
Oh, there you go. Thank you for your call.
That's great.
I appreciate it. So, you know, like you said, this is also for, there's so many couples who are having trouble conceiving. Yes. Others no, but some do. So this also helps them.
Yeah, very much so. And many of them are going to these in vitro doctors. The principle of in vitro fertilization is to skip over the cause. So they don't look for the causes. So they go in with the causes, they come out with the causes, and most of the time they don't come out with a baby. Yeah. And when they come to us, we look for the root causes of the problem, and we treat those effectively. So in a way, it's a win-win situation. Our pregnancy rates are higher than IVF, but they also get their diseases treated, and they feel better. And feeling better is really important.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the great things about medicine.
Yeah.
That's why we love it. Well, you know, we're coming close to the end here of the show. I want to make sure that you all get a chance to look up the Pope Paul VI Institute. And again, the website is popepaulvi.com, popepaul6.com. And the phone number is 402-390-6600. Thank you both for being with us. It's been a delight, and hope we'll hear more from you again. And I want to give you a blessing on this great feast of St. Joseph. May Almighty God bless you and keep you by the intercession of St. Joseph. Keep you always holy and close to Jesus. May God bless you, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. And you know, we'll be able to show the documentary and as well as have the Hilgers on this program and do so many other things to promote life because you support this network. It's your network, so please keep us in between your gas bill, electric bill, cable bill, and we'll pay our bills too. Thank you.